great. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining AndWorld Design today to celebrate Letterer Appreciation Day. I'm Kat. I'm a proofreader for AndWorld Design, and I'll be moderating the discussion that our group will be having today. So our discussion is going to go beyond lettering as a skill and center on the importance of visibility in the comic book industry from a letterer's perspective. And we'll be hearing all about it from the letterers of AndWorld Design. So we have Darren Bennett, who is the owner of AndWorld. We also have Erica Tariquez, who's been lettering comics since 2006. She started working with Darren in 2011. She's lettered both American comics and manga, and primarily works on manga. We have T. Hopkins, who was a self-taught letterer working on comics since 2010. He joined AndWorld in 2014 and has been working as a full-time letterer since 2019. We also have Justin Birch, who started lettering in 2015 after taking a comics experience lettering class. He began lettering full-time in 2017 and joined AndWorld that same year. And Tom Napolitano, who started lettering in-house at DC in 2015, then moved to freelancing and working with AndWorld in 2016. So at the end of this discussion, we should have some time for audience questions. So if you have them, please post them in the chat. So to start things off, Darren, can you tell us a little about the origins of AndWorld Design?
I guess it sort of started out of necessity. I was just killing myself working on multiple titles. I had like a couple publishers that I was already working with. I was lettering since about 2003, and in 2010, things just started like building up to where I had more work than I was able to handle on my own. So it was either scale back or actually just create an opportunity where I can do all the work that was coming in, and all at the same time just provide opportunities for other letterers as well. And so that was really the foundation of what AndWorld was about. And just sort of coming off of that, I was thinking it can be a way that not only do I provide work for other letterers, but also provide like education and other tools that they can use. And so that was really my thought process going in, and that's how we got here today.
Yeah, that's really cool that you've brought in not only letterers but proofreaders, and you've really like expanded AndWorld to comprise of a really cool team. So I think did Morgan join us?
Yes, Morgan's in here.
Hey, do you want to give a brief introduction and then we'll jump into the next question?
Yeah, Morgan, I guess how long have I been doing this since, was it 2011?
2010, actually.
Oh, okay, 2010.
Yeah.
So, I do lettering for Darren, and then I also do design. I work at a book publisher.
Awesome. So I'm going to pose this next question to the group, which is pretty much the theme of the day. But what does Letterer Appreciation Day mean to you? And why is a day like this so important for letterers? Anybody who wants to jump in first?
I'll speak at once.
I'll go first. It's important to me because I'm a vain individual. So I'm seeing everybody mention me in their tweets and Facebook notifications. It also means that I get to pick dinner for the night.
Oh, nice.
Big bonus there. For me, I think, it just gives us an opportunity to get recognized for the stuff that we do day in and day out. We're not the sexiest part of the creative process going into comic book making, but we're vital, and I think to have that recognized is really important for us, and just have ourselves just self-advocate and show others what we're bringing to the table. I think that's really important.
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think one thing I've noticed a lot today too is, and this will probably be a reoccurring thing we're going to talk about in the panel, is sort of education in a lot of ways about what we even do. Mm-hmm. I think for a lot of people, it's still a very rudimentary understanding of, okay, yeah, they do the bubbles, which, every letterer cringes at because we call them word balloon. But they do the balloons and the sound effects, and that's it. And one thing that's, been nice today that I've seen a lot of is creative teams and different, especially in the indie community, especially posting things like, hey, here's an example of something we ran into in our book and how our letterer helped us overcome this obstacle. And here's some creative stuff they had to do. And it really keeps people into understanding, it's more than just what you might think it is. It's a bigger piece of the collaborative effort.
It's also a day where everybody can kind of give a little bit of love to the projects that they've worked on, show the stuff that really you put your heart and soul into, as well as maybe some project that might never have gotten off the ground, but you can show a little piece of it. That's a good way of also doing that.
Yeah.
I agree with what everybody's saying. It's also, I think we have to point out that it is also the birthday of Gaspar Saladino, and it's a way to honor his life and work. If he didn't do the Swamp Thing logo, I probably wouldn't have loved Swamp Thing to the degree that I loved and gotten into comics. And I think that's also how it communicates about the rest of the community. Like, you may not notice what we put into it and how it affects you later as a fan, as a person that gets into comics. I don't know how to expand on that, but
yeah, absolutely. I think to tag up on that, it feels like, at least in my experience and the experience of a lot of people I've talked to, lettering kind of sneaks up on them as something that they never ever noticed, and then suddenly are super into and are like, oh man, there's way more going on than I noticed here, both in terms of the dialogue, the sound effects, but then, like you mentioned, logos and titles, and it's kind of like a pretty binary thing, it seems like, for most people, to where it is the quote unquote invisible art, which we'll talk about more, I'm sure, until it's not, and then suddenly you start to notice all the intricacies, and you start to notice when lettering works, when it doesn't work, beyond just kind of the obvious, which is nice.
Yeah, to DC's point, lettering has often been called the invisible art. Is that something you agree with, or what does that mean exactly?
I think for a lot of people, the reason why it's an invisible art is people don't necessarily understand what the lettering is. If you say you letter, they usually think, oh, you write the words. No, then you do the art. No, there's like another subset that works and puts all of that together, and you kind of have to explain that to everybody so that they can understand what exactly it means. And in the case of where I'm doing manga, it means I also have to remove the original, redraw it, and then put in something new and make it all look seamless so that the reader doesn't get taken out of the story.
The comparison that I like to make is that I'm the offensive lineman of a football team. The only time you notice the offensive lineman is when something has gone horribly, horribly wrong.
I come from, Justin just used a sports metaphor, which I think was football. I'm not a sports guy, so I got at least that much out of it. But and I've heard him make that comparison before, so which I do like. I came from originally, my career started off in film production, and the metaphor I used back then, and a lot of people I think try to use as well, is film editing. So the idea that if a film is well edited, you're not going to notice the editing. It's going to be seamless. You're going to be carried from one place to the other. It's going to help with the pacing. But when it's done poorly, when there's tons of sharp cuts or whatever it is that pulls you out of it, then suddenly you're like, okay, something's wrong. Why am I not connecting with this? Why does everything feel disjointed? And so a lot of people use that comparison, I feel like, within comic book lettering, as like, when it's great, it's invisible. And the more I've gotten into lettering, the more I disagree with that. I understand the point. I understand where it's coming from. I understand why people say that. And I even agree with that idea, because yeah, sure, you don't want to have bad lettering that's going to pull you out of a comic. But the thing that I've learned more and more over the recent years from Darren, from AndWorld, from other letters as well, a lot of our peers, is when lettering is done well, you notice it. But you notice it because it enhances the comic book. You notice it because it enhances the art, it enhances the reading experience for you. This probably won't be the first or the last time that I bring up how much I love Tom's sound effects, but Tom has a way of doing sound effects that I get pulled another layer deeper into the comic. So when I'm reading a comic lettered by Tom, I've got the dialogue, I've got the story that I'm at, I'm then taken to the next level with the art that I'm taking in after I usually read the dialogue, and then I'm taking in a third layer by Tom's sound effects because he's able to meld all of that. So that's not invisible to me. You know, it's pulling me in deeper. It's making it even more visible and even more vital as a specific art form within the collaborative effort. So I get it when people say, you know, hey, if it's good, it should be invisible. But I always like to tag it up with, you know, if it's done well, you're going to notice it, and that's an okay thing. That's a good thing. That's going to make you appreciate and enjoy the comics even more as a piece of art from all of the different aspects.
Yeah, I don't agree with it being called an invisible art in the sense that it should be called that or anything like that. But it makes sense to me because I think that a lot of people they interact with it the same way that you interact with any kind of art, in that when it's good, it's going to evoke some kind of feeling out of you. And that's what I think we want to do. We're not just, you know, communicating the dialogue or the sound effect, but we really want to enhance a bit of the art. You have a character making a certain face to give the reader an idea of their feelings, or, you know, whatever their expression is. But if we can do something also with the lettering to really show how shook up they are, or how angry they are, or whatever else, then, you know, then you're going to interact with that art. And I think it's really only invisible in the sense that people don't think about what it takes to build that. You know, just kind of like what we were saying earlier, people think about the writing and they think about the drawing, and that's all one thing for them. You know, they don't necessarily think about colorists or letterers or anyone else. Yeah, that's what I think.
So to that point, what are some of the things behind the scenes that most people aren't aware that the letterer is doing?
Oh, man. Let's see. I mean, obviously projects vary, but I think especially when you get into creator-owned realms, independent stuff, but not always. Sometimes with publishers as well. We're the last line of defense, almost always. So if there's something going down that needs fixed, it's almost definitely going to be on us, unless it's a massive art change or something like that needs to go back to the artist, or they're doing a major script rewrite. But if there's a major script rewrite, that is also on us, because we have to then re-letter that, especially if we've just gotten done lettering it there at the end. But I mean, I don't want to speak for all of you guys, but I know, at least for me, it depends on the project, but a lot of times it can be up to and including communicating with the printer themselves to get them the files that they need, so that you are literally the last person to touch it before it gets printed and sent to the readers. Other times it's, you know, having to be the person there on the spot for updates to get it out the door. And it can be pretty hectic depending on the project and how late or potentially late it could be.
Oh yeah,
if I can add on to that too.
Yeah.
Well, just aside from the technical part of it, of, you know, providing them the files and stuff like that, I think maybe what would help people understand it is that you really try to have to understand comics as a different medium. It's not just you know, fiction writing, novel writing, but with pictures. You know, it's not just movies, but they're still, you know, still frames or something. You know, we are interacting with both of those mediums and more, and in a way that film doesn't do and novels don't do. So when we're setting up the lettering, we have to think a lot about the placement of certain balloons, of certain sound effects, the way that it all flows on the page from panel to panel. Because if it doesn't flow well, then the reader gets confused. They forget which panel they're looking at, or whatever else. And so I kind of think of it like it's almost like we're providing some editing work, like you had mentioned, film editing. I think it's a little bit like that, but again, it's not like film editing at all, because it's not film, it's comics.
Yeah.
So we really are working on this other vector that really only exists in comics and sequential art.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is that we're storytellers ourselves. I think you look at the art, you look at the writing in it, and you feel like that's the only level of storytelling being done. But the storytelling is also happening on the lettering side, and a lot of things that people are not picking up on that we're adding to it are have to do with composition and the use of negative space and setting up the beats and the mood and the tone and just the flow of action. And this is more than just, how everybody's just looking at, it guides the eye through the page. Now we're actually like helping tell the story. Is this person speaking in this certain way? What sort of sounds are being portrayed on the page? It's just a whole lot of stuff that we're adding to the visual narrative that's being put down by the letterer, and not just the art itself. We're adding to that. We're adding that extra bit of spice that makes the whole story just come together.
There's also a little bit of like a puzzle solving going on, because sometimes you might end up with a panel that has way too many people and way too much dialogue, and you got to figure out how best to show it as well as get it to guide the reader properly.
Yeah. Yep.
I think just like real quick, that we all kind of smirked when the thought of deadlines were mentioned. Quick turnaround.
Oh yeah, there's just so many things that would like every now and then you'll see, not every now and then, more often than not, you'll see them talking about the unsung heroes of comic books, and there's a reason. Like we're that, like they said, the last line of defense, and putting out these books on like some unreal deadlines, and in some of these cases we're the ones to make that last hurdle, to jump over that last hurdle. And I've learned like things that I really don't, they're not part of the lettering job, but I have to do it, where I'm manipulating art on pages to make something work, or recoloring, like some of these things that you think are the colorist doing or the artist doing might be coming down to the letterer. And so there are these last minute touches that we actually put on the page before the production guy, obviously, but we're also involved in that, those crazy things that happen at the end.
Can I throw out a quick example of that? I won't name the team or the book or the publisher, but there was one instance. This is probably 3 or 4 years ago, where I worked on a book, and we were down to the wire. I mean, I was working with the writer late at night. He was doing little rewrites. We were getting all those nailed down, and I gave him my phone number. I was like, if you have anything else, let me know. I'll be around. Shoot me a text, whatever. And he was like, no, we're good. This is going to the printer now. We're done. We're locked in. We made it. And I got a phone call at 3 a.m, and it was from the writer, and he was panicked, and he was like, I just realized that our artist drew a character in the background that's not supposed to be there. And I'm not sure what to do, because we can't have him redraw it. This has to go out. And I was like, all right, let's figure it out. So to Darren's point a second ago, I went into the art, and luckily the person was standing in front of something pretty simple, and I'm not much of a traditional artist in that sense, but I was in there painting this, this character out of the background at 3 a.m, and we got the book out. No one noticed it. It was good. But that's kind of like that's an extreme example, but that's one of the ones I always think of with stuff like this, where it's like, this is none of our jobs, but we're making it happen to get this book out. And we did it.
You placed the balloons over him or something?
I wish I could have.
Yeah, that's amazing. And as you've all shown, letterers play such an integral role to comics, not only like being able to read them if the comic is meant to be read that way, but really informs how you read it. And you do so much work behind the scenes that people aren't like automatically aware of. But it's not always commonplace to credit letterers on the cover of comics. I think people are getting more cognizant of that now, but it's not always the case. So do cover credits matter? And in that same vein, why is it important if you're listed in the reviews of comics you've worked on?
I want to bring up a point to the first part of do cover credits matter. I could be wrong, but I think some companies use it to figure, or at least it's a factor in royalties. And the sad part about this conversation is that we're not even talking about wanting royalties. We just want to be seen as part of the team on the cover. Like it's like we're not asking for, you know, a back end deal. We're just asking for visibility, for lack of a better word.
That's
Well,
perfect.
I think it's acknowledgement for the group that puts the project together. That I know of, most publishers tend to stick with the same letterer for a series unless something major happens and they need to find somebody else. But you're basically using the same artist, the same writer, usually also the same colorist and the same letterer. All of a big team of this particular project that would just like to be acknowledged for the work that they put in for the entirety of the series.
Yeah, I think it also just gives everyone a lot more opportunities too, rather than being that invisible partner, but having your name on the cover will allow not just letterers to have other opportunities, but then also for for the fan base, for the industry, for other people to be able to see you and begin to recognize your work. It's just also really exciting. It's cool. I think I had my first cover credit a couple months ago from Heathen for my lettering, and it was just awesome. Just to see my name there.
Yeah, Vault's really good about that. I really like the fact that they include the letterers on their covers, and I think it goes a long way to just reinforce that team value. My favorite thing about comics in general is just the collaboration, and to feel part of that team and is really important. And when you are sort of excluded, it just takes away from that. And I think reinforcing that by putting letterers on the cover helps that out. It also helps like as far as the recognition for our efforts. For the fans to know who the letterers are and we were talking about reviews. There are plenty of times where I'm looking at a book and I want to know who the letterer is, just because that's my interest, and I'm sure everybody here is interested because that's our profession. And so I would like other people to start looking at lettering in that way, and the only way they can is to identify with the letterers who are out there. And there's no way to do that unless you actually are really searching for that book. But to have it right there, right on the cover, helps a lot.
Yeah, and when you also consider representation of the artists in the industry, it's nice that people can look at it and say, oh look, this letterer is Latino, or oh wow, there's a girl working on this comic. I didn't know girls did comics. Like, I think it was Kate Leth was saying that she experienced that once, where she had written an Adventure Time comic, and well, she didn't experience it directly, but one of her friends who worked at a comic shop did, where a young girl was in there and was seeing the different comics, and they saw Kate Leth on the Adventure Time comic and said, oh, that's a girl's name. And the person at the store said, oh yeah, that is a girl. And then the kid got excited and was like, oh my God, I'm a girl. And realized that this is something that they could be a part of, that they could do. Yeah. And so I think it's really important for that.
Oh, yeah.
I think from also we're all designers too, so there's also another aspect of that to where it's it takes no extra work to add one more name. Yeah. There's that little kind of annoying part to where it's you could put it right there, and that's another aspect sometimes that irks me a little bit is, I think it was maybe a couple years ago, there was more of a push with colorists getting cover credit, which was great. And, we were all excited and supportive of that. But then it also led to the sort of dawning realization for all of us of now we're the only people not on the cover. So a lot of times it ends up being, you see all of the people that you worked with, and then you're not there, you're not part of it. And that can be frustrating. Comics are a collaborative medium, and we collaborate a lot when we work. So to then get to that final, finish line, and for everybody to be hey, we're done, let's talk about it, and you're not part of that conversation, is discouraging, and that can add up.
Yeah, definitely. So aside from being properly credited, what are some other ways that would help raise a letterer's visibility in this industry?
I mean, definitely reviews calling out a lettering. The whole point of a review whether it be for comics or movies or whatever, is so that you can call out why somebody needs to check this out. And if somebody is reading a comic book and they're enjoying the story so much and not taken out, there's no reason why they shouldn't be calling out the fact that the lettering is good.
And to just kind of add to the previous question off of that, like, I will often look up reviews of my lettering because I want to get better. I want to know what's working for the reader. I want to know what's not working for the reader. I noticed that red type on black balloons does not work for the reader. And I wouldn't know that unless, you know, a review said this is awful to look at all the time. So it's like, I know it's hard to, you know, talk about something you may not know about, but it's also helping me evolve, and the rest of the bodies.
That's a great point too.
Yeah, like I keep an eye out for this. I've only seen one time that that I was mentioned in a review, and then maybe like another 1 or 2 times that other letters have mentioned. But Graphic Policy had a review for Andre the Giant, and they included my name in there and talked about what I did. So that was really neat. But I think also being able to get that like into the minds of like fans and readers and stuff, it's about raising our profile, not for the sense of fame or royalties like you were saying earlier, but like if even other people within the industry would think to themselves, well, you know, I would really like to do something very interesting with this comic and its style, and you know, lettering maybe shouldn't be an afterthought. So like if the letterer were included in early talks for the story, for, you know, like what the illustrator could be doing, what they could be thinking, the colorist, whatever else. So we could also provide collaborative input. Then we could do, you know, we can do things that we wouldn't normally get to do. It would be more organic than it would be like us doing patchwork or you know, trying to make things fit. We could be like, oh no, wait, I got a great idea. If you set it up like this, then I could do this awesome thing, and then now we have more ideas going and going and going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. You know, getting in with the other team members early on in the process is very helpful. And I think you know, if we're looking at ways to boost letterer recognition, crediting. I think, you know, having our team members as advocates for us when they're asking, you know, to have us on a book or to have us on the cover credits with them. I think that can help out. You know, like I'm seeing a lot of team members call out their fellow collaborators or other letterers online today, and you know, if we can keep that going, generating that day after day, I think that's important.
It also just hurts when your teammates don't mention you in their promotional tweets. It just hurts so bad.
See, I was being kind and flipping it the other way around.
Nah, I just go into full depression. I have to go take a nap.
I had somebody
Buffy.
I had somebody just this week say something about me in an interview that this person's doing a ton of promotional work right now and for their book that's coming out, and the question was just, you know, hey, tell me about the team. And I expected to see, you know, hey, we got this person, you know, on art, this person on colors, this person on lettering. And the creator broke it all down, and I had like 2 or 3 sentences about the value that they felt I put to this team. And like, I was almost getting emotional. I direct messaged the creator and was just like, this is probably the nicest thing anyone's ever, you know, said about me on a book and supported me in this way. And they were, you know, kind of shocked. They were just like, I mean, I wasn't, you know, overpraising you. I was just talking about, and I was like, no, I know, but I understand you feel that way, but it's rare. You know, most times if there's an interview about the creative team, they forget the letterer's name, or they, you know, it's an afterthought. And the fact that you know, recognized that meant so much to me, and it had me creatively energized. I was ready to jump back in the book and, you know, keep working on it. And, you know, it means a lot more than I think people realize.
Well, I also think a lot of people in the industry, and not necessarily just in publishing, but in the creative industry, don't necessarily realize how much something like that can mean to the person who's constantly at the end of the train, just getting piled on with all the work and told, this is what you have to do. We need it by tomorrow. Okay, bye.
It was due yesterday.
Yeah.
To add to all of that, I think it was DC had Hopkins up there above me. I had sent him a book, and he had mentioned that I was mentioned in a forward, and I was like, "What? Holy cow! I was mentioned in the forward? Wow, dang!" And that, that stinks. That like is not common enough for me to be like, "Oh yeah, that happens," but
Yeah.
it's not. It's just a treat.
And I think the takeaway from that, like, because I know none of us are meaning it this way, and I don't want to come across this way. It's not a like, oh, we're always sad all the time because we're, we're left out. Like, there are those feelings, obviously, but the point I think we're all trying to make is when it's not that, when we're made to feel like part of the team, it is a huge boost. And we feel like so much, I mean, it brings all of that fun and all of that creative energy right back to the forefront again and gets us creative energized again. And that's, I mean, we're not making comics to get rich. I don't think any of us are, right? So this is something that we're passionate about. This is something that we're interested in and enjoy doing. And so when we can inject some of that back into the equation, just from, continuing to keep that collaborative spirit going, it's great. It's a great feeling. And I think everyone benefits from it. It's not that we're just looking for a special pat on the back and a cookie. I think in the same way that when I talk about a book, I talk about everybody on the book, and all of those people have their strengths. All the other people on the team are doing a ton of work too. We talk about all the things that we do at the end of the line, but we're not the only people working on that. I think people know that, but it's a huge collaborative thing, and it helps when you feel like you're all one big team. As sort of cheesy as that sounds.
I wouldn't mind getting rich though.
I would love to be rich. I'm not throwing
I got
out.
him to get rich.
So I think another thing that really helps boost visibility is awards, and of course awards season is upon us. And just a quick congratulations to Darren for your Ringo nomination.
Thank you.
So what do you all think is the importance of awards and including letterers in that category?
Again, I will be the horrible capitalist, but like, getting a nom means like I'm sure Darren gets more work with a nomination. I'm sure Justin has gotten more work with a nomination. I don't know anybody else in this panel that has gotten nominations, but I'm sure you have gotten more work based on like a heads up from the Eisners or Ringos, etc. And it also increases visibility in what you do, and more visibility means more work, and more work means more money, and more money means I could be rich, maybe. I don't know.
It's also one of those things where we don't think about it this way, but publishers do, where if you are nominated for something, that now becomes a tagline that they can use on a project. They can say, Eisner nominated so-and-so on this project, come check it out. And while we don't necessarily need it for that purpose, it is still nice to be able to say, hey, somebody saw my work. They liked it enough that they wanted to put me in this group of like 5 to 6 other people who are awesome. And I can now say I'm part of that group of these awesome people that all got to run for it this year or next year or whatever.
Yeah, I think as far as awards go, it definitely helps. That cash grab. But, no, more than that, I think what we're looking at when we see these awards is we want to have the profession again recognized for what it is. And so if we start to see new names out there are a ton of letterers doing this professionally that don't get a chance to get in these awards because we're not at the forefront. We're not in those reviews. We're not in those cover credits, whatever. So it's hard to get that recognition out there. And so I think going back to why Letterers Day is important is because we're out there pushing forth all of the names that are out there and helping get recognition for those who aren't really getting the accolades or whatever through awards. And maybe one day we can start to see their names as Eisner nominees, as Ringo nominees, as Harvey nominees, or what have you. So it's really a benefit to stop thinking about it in terms of the invisible artist, so that we start thinking about them as artists who can also be nominated and put in the same class as other letters who have come before them.
And I'll say,
oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Erica.
I was going to say it would also be nice if instead of just being a generic lettering award, there was actually some call outs for some of the better things that people do, like whether they took a big splash page and made an awesome sound effect or a logo design or something like that. We have people who get nominated for best writing, best short story, best this, best that, where it's all from the same facet of writing or art, where it'd be nice if they did the same thing for lettering, because the letterer does a lot more than just providing the text on the page with the balloons and the sound effects.
Yeah, I was actually going to say something along those lines. I think a big, and this is a bigger discussion that I won't take us to, but I think we could definitely use a better grasp and firmer definition of what lettering awards are and what they're for. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times there's, for the public at large, for the comic book people that pay attention, fans that pay attention to Eisners or Harveys or Ringos, whatever, they see a lot of the same names pop up, over and over and over and over and over again. And the sort of understanding of what a letterer is sort of skewed. And a lot of times it encompasses cartoonists, which cartoonists are absolutely letterers, but they're doing a different thing than we're doing. And I think most people don't realize that. So they sort of see one thing and think it's all the same thing. And when in reality, it's different approaches, it's different techniques. It's all art, but it's done in a completely different way. And so I would like to see, a more effort put in towards sort of defining that. And I think what Eric said would be a great way to do that would be to sort of highlight some of the more specific things. If we had whether they call it a hand lettering thing or a cartoonist, I don't know how they necessarily define it. There's amazing lettering to be found for, Chris Ware, Craig Thompson, Clouds, like all these guys do amazing work, but it's also not even, it's similar to what we do. It's not completely different, but it is not the same thing as what we're doing on our books. So I would like to see that, and I think it would help also educate people on what lettering is and what certain types of lettering are and how they differ. And that could be a big help too.
Mm-hmm. And I guess to that point, do you all think there would be interest in doing lettering panels at conventions?
I think so.
When I first started lettering, or when I first started trying to learn to do it, if I had gone to a convention and saw that there was a lettering panel, I would have been all over that, just from a learning experience or a learning part of it. I'd love it.
Well,
I don't know how many people want to listen to that.
It's one of those things where there are people that go to panels, not necessarily because they're in the industry, but also because they just want to learn about that particular facet of the industry. And by having something like a lettering panel, people might not know what it is, but they might read the description and be like, okay, maybe I'll give it a shot, and find out that it's something that they want to do, or even just something that is now going to pique their interest so that when they read something, they give it a little more attention than they would have before. And with panels, there are so many panels for everything. There's panels to go on about a cartoon. There's panels to go on about the behind the scenes of a project. There's no reason why we couldn't get some lettering panels out there for somebody who, whether it's just to learn more information, tips and tricks on how to do things, or if it's to actually learn what lettering is.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Justin and I met through trying to, learn more at conventions, and met in a one-on-one capacity in that sense. So, I think there's definitely a thirst there for just learning it. But I think we're all geeky in some ways too for process, but I think that is great whenever they do panels that are, let's watch a page get kind of put together from beginning to end. It's obviously accelerated pace, but it helps people sort of comprehend. And for a lot of people, that might mean just the simple thing that they understand walking away. The lesson might be, I need to get a letterer. I can't do this myself, or I can't have my artist try to do this. I need to get somebody who knows how to do it. And you'll hear that from publishers and editors a lot, is that can destroy or really severely hinder a great comic otherwise, if the lettering comes in and detracts from everything else if it's not done right.
There's also people who don't know what lettering is, but they know it's something they want to do, And without knowing that it exists out there, they're not going to know it's a thing that they want. I've done career days before where when I'm showing my process to these kids, somebody will always come up at the end and say, I didn't know what this was, but I knew I wanted to do it, and now I know. And now I know what to look into. And now I can understand how to look for it on the internet to try and figure it out. And it's like, you're never going to know unless there's somebody saying front and center, this is what lettering is, this is what we do, this is how to get into it, and how to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So also in a year where we're seeing companies visibly push for diversity and more diverse and inclusive teams, how does this affect you as a letterer?
I think that's kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, that, you know, if our names were out there more, that we would more immediately be under consideration, because they would say, oh, you know, I remember this person from this book or whatever, you know, let's bring them in for this project. That was what happened with me one time with John Leguizamo's comic, Freak. The guy who was putting it together, Eduardo, he reached out to me specifically just because he had seen my name on something that I had done through AndWorld. He just saw Martinez. And so he's like, oh, it's a Latino. I need this person. and grabbed me, because then the entire creative team was all Latinos. And that was something that was very important to John Leguizamo, to have a full Latino team of creatives all together working on his book.
Yeah,
Nice.
It's definitely you know, been important to see creators of color, creators of different races and other backgrounds to be able to collaborate within the comics community, because it, for me, like books like Excellence and Far Sector, they're really, you know, they're really great comics first and foremost. But to be part of that as an African American is just, you know, it's really important for me, just to, as far as putting that out there for generations to come. And like Morgan was saying, you know, just having children or other fans look at the book and say, oh, I can do this, or I can become this. It's just, you know, it's something else. And I'm really grateful for the opportunities that have come because of the push for diversity and the push for including people of all diverse backgrounds.
Yeah, and I think what's really important about how people should look at it, because I know that the idea of diversity in comics and including comics sometimes get a bad rap because people don't always understand it. They think people are just checking off boxes, things like that. Mm-hmm. And I would really want people to understand that it really is about the expression of individual, unique voices. Like in novel writing as well, you know, they refer to it as own voices authors. And it's like with every aspect of the comic book making process, there's going to be something there that we're going to be able to pull from our life experience, from our culture, and be able to enhance the book's effect. Even if it's a matter of knowing a language more natively than someone else, then we would know where we should be putting the emphasis. Or certain sound effects, or, you know, we could do this sound effect, but if I use this one, it'll have more relevance to this type of story or whatever.
There's also the more diverse the group you have, the more ideas can bounce off of each other, and you can get different takes, as opposed to if everybody is the same gender, the same race, they're all going to have a similar story that they're going to see be told. And if you have a diverse team, you might have a story that takes place in a different country or with a different type of character than you're accustomed to, because everybody brings to the creative input their own take on the world and how they've experienced it.
I think we've got. Did you guys hear that too?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Okay. I'm not sure whose mic it is.
I don't know.
Can we mute some?
Okay, I think it ended.
All right.
Is everyone good?
I think so.
Cool. Okay. Did anybody else have some thoughts about that last question?
I choked. I think it's just good to, it helps.
Your volume's really low, Tom.
I feel like I'm the crackling, so that's why I'm distracted.
You sound good now.
Like, I've completely lost my train of thought.
You're like, forget it.
So another question that we were thinking is, what are some other letters that you take notice of? So like, what draws your attention to their work the most?
I would say first that come to my mind, Aditya Bidikar, his work is amazing. The stuff that he's able to do and pull off for each project, always kind of blows my mind, whether it's harkening back to, sort of styles reminiscent of like 90s, 80s Vertigo, to like high tech stuff. He's always able to do something unique. I think one of probably the letters that I'm constantly surprised by, and he's someone who has been surprising me for decades, is Russ Wooten. I think, everybody knows him from Invincible and Walking Dead and, a lot of the bigger books, but every single time that guy comes up with a new lettering style, usually it's something I look at and I'm like, I don't know how he pulled this off. He used the Imaginary Friend font from Blambot in Outcast, which is like a dark horror book. And Imaginary Friend is not typically the font you would go to for that. And I thought it was beautiful work. And that hit me in a way to where I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like I'm playing everything so safe. I've got to figure out ways to, roll the dice more like Russ does. But it all seems so effortless. Those are two that come to my head right away.
And real quick, I want to add, because I told Tom to mute himself and he can't fight back, that I'm crazy jealous of Tom's sound effects. Some of the best stuff that I've seen out there.
Absolutely.
I actually had them collaborating on a book together, or I think over 2 separate issues, and Justin decided to step his game up and try and beat out Tom in the sound effects arena. But no, I my favorite letterers are all the ones right here. These guys, they push me, and so I'm going to cheat and say, my team here at AndWorld, those are my guys who I take notice of.
So we got a really interesting question in the chat that I would love to hear your thoughts on. Is there a financial barrier to entry in becoming a letterer, or anything else that would limit diversity in the medium?
Letter pay is typically low.
Yeah, I would say the biggest barrier is actually getting a publisher to be willing to go past their team. A lot of publishers like to stick with people that they've worked with. And so trying to be like, this is my stuff, check it out. If you like it, put me on a project. They're likely to still continue to go with somebody who they've already worked with, because they're like, we already know their work, we know they're fast, we know their talent. So we're just gonna give them more stuff.
I think what would the technical side of it be? I mean, you would need Illustrator.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to have, a lot of people I think that you have to have like a tablet or a Cintiq or something like that. And, I think not all letters are different, but a lot of them vary. So, I think a lot of us kind of started off on mice and keyboards or trackpads in some cases, which is not fun. And then, worked your way up to something else as you learned and got faster. But I know there's plenty of letters that still use mouse and keyboard. So if you have something that can run, Adobe, it doesn't typically have to necessarily be the most top of the line version of anything. I think, in fact, a lot of us try to hold on to the older versions because we like them.
I mean, I feel like for lettering in general, really all you need is a computer and a working version of Illustrator, at least for American comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, up until probably December of 2019, I was still just using the mouse.
And you switched over. I'm so proud of you.
I held out as long as possible.
You sure did. No, but I think I see in the chat page rates can be a deterrent. If we're talking as far as pay, you would have to have that sort of name attached to it to be able to ask for a higher rate or just get in at a fair entry point. Otherwise, you might see the lower end of page rates when you're taking a lot of these jobs without knowing any better. So that can be, a barrier for somebody who wants to do this full time. So you'd either have to start off with an additional job or some other form of income, or before you go full-time freelance. And I know some of you guys can speak to that as far as having to work your main job and then have lettering as a side hustle.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I did for the first 2 years. When I started lettering, it was the goal to make it so I could quit my 9-to-5 office job and do this full time. But I knew that I couldn't just jump in, that I would have to gradually phase out the day job. So that's what I did for the first couple of years, is I did both.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people who want to be a full-time freelancer have to do the thing where they're balancing the freelance with the everyday job, because you haven't gotten to the point where you have financial security enough to take that leap of faith. In my case, I worked for 2 different comic book publishers for the first few years before I was luckily laid off and was able to take the unemployment to help me go full-time freelance. And it's worked out well so far.
All right, so I personally have a question for all of you. So we've heard today, how essential lettering is to comics, how important it is to the medium. So I would love to know what's something you've lettered that you're most proud of, whether it's a whole comic, a single page, or even a single panel.
I'll jump in first just because there's a nice little segue from what we were just talking about. Mine that I brought here is a resignation letter that I gave to my day job. So at my day job for almost a decade, I worked for our main client was Apple. So I started off on the phone as an Apple tech support person and worked my way up and was working very much in the corporate world. And so I would say probably 95% of my coworkers had no idea what exactly I did with comics. I think a lot of them knew I had this hobby with comics. They would see me reading comics at on my break or whatever, and knew that I wanted to work in comics, but I think they just assumed I wanted to write or draw or something. So when I quit my day job to do comics full time, to letter full time, there's that whole corporate, sort of, it was great working with all of you, and I will cherish all of my years, working here and take it with me. And I wanted to do that, but I wanted to show them I'm doing something. I'm actually doing something. I'm not just quitting. I'm sure a lot of people are going to think that this is a stupid thing that I'm doing to walk away from this job, but I know what I'm doing. Here's what it is. And so I did a little 2-page sort of comic and sent that out on a personal level in sort of a petty way. It was also kind of a nudge towards my boss, who was always very dismissive of me doing comics. So I wanted to, as my last sort of send off, I didn't want to leave on bad terms, but I did want to be I'm going to make everybody read 2 pages of comics at their desk. So here it is. And I can't draw, but I did it all with lettering, and it came out well. And it was it was a big thing on Twitter too when I quit, which was kind of cool. So it got me some jobs, which was nice.
Very nice. For me, one of the things that I worked on that actually was a pretty big project was the manga Ranma 1/2, which came out some time ago through Viz, and they went ahead and they did these bind ups, but they wanted all the sound effects to be handwritten, well, digitally hand drawn. And at that point, I hadn't really done anything like that. And this definitely pushed me in a way that I had to try and figure out ways to do different things and how best to make things look, and took a lot of redrawing of sound effects to finally find something that I was happy with. But this was definitely one of the probably at the time longest running series that I had worked on, but also the most time consuming ones. It was definitely a lot of work.
That's gorgeous work.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Any other of us? No.
Anyone have anything prepared? It's okay.
I think.
I have something. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, well, just the Andre the Giant comic that I had worked on. I got that, and the art in it looks so great, and I didn't want to cover any of it up. Not just with word balloons, but also with like caption boxes and things like that. So let's see here. I'm trying to share my screen. Okay. So this is a page from Under the Giant, and yeah, I love the look of it so much, and it just seemed weird to cover it up with boxes, and it seemed strange to not have something that looked very organic, like it fit in with the art, like that it not just fit in with the style, but I don't know. I felt like people needed to really be in the story, because otherwise, I don't know. It just seemed a shame to not try to take people into that level. And so yeah, there's a lot of cases where I will have just worked the words, all the captions and stuff into the art, so that they can enjoy it. They can enjoy the art and not just think about each thing as a panel that's going to tell them some rote information, but something that's going to give them a real story and sense of feeling and stuff of Andre the Giant and his world and what he was going through, and the bad times, the good times, all that kind of stuff.
And I will say, everybody should check out that book. There's a comic by Box Brown that people know about, and this one is another amazing Andre the Giant book. This one's called Andre the Giant Closer to Heaven, and Morgan did great work on it. It's a book I talk about a lot, and Justin and Tom and I are all pro wrestling fans. So whenever I talk to a pro wrestler, that's always one of the books that I recommend, where I'm like, you got to check out one of my studio mates did the lettering, and it's great stuff.
Yeah, and that's the official one too, because Andre the Giant's daughter, she was involved with it.
Justin, did you have something?
Yeah, I think I do. Do I?
Do you?
Yeah.
Amazing.
So this is probably the reason why I'm proud of this one is because it's probably the greatest sound effect that I've ever created. Because I took a paintbrush and put blood splatters on there so it wouldn't just be, sticking out. I wanted it to blend in as best that I could. Plus, I think you really get a sense of what is going on in that scene based on those sounds.
Great stuff. What book is that from, Justin?
That is from Road of Bones by
That's what I thought.
IDW.
IDW, yeah. Okay, cool.
I mean, it's not Tom level sound effects, but
you do great. You did great. So is it me? This is my page. It's from Batman Last Night on Earth, I think, issue 2. Issue 2 in general, I just feel like I was doing everything correctly as a letterer. I picked this page because it just showed everything all in one page. Like I have a specialty balloon in there. I have sound effects all over the place. The reading order is fine. It could be better, but yeah, it just shows like it just completely encompasses what I do as a letterer. This page, and I enjoy looking at it. I like looking at the Scarecrow balloon a lot, but I love lettering booms. They're so good.
Hey, those are some good booms.
I really like the one that's in the second to last panel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of these are examples of, you know, the things that we're talking about, how they go unnoticed by the average reader, but these are the things we're adding to a page. Whether Hopkins is doing a full comic that's just pure lettering, that's pure typography, and just you know, that speaks to how, you know, we can tell a story without the pictures itself, and just pictures and words can go a long way, and these pictorial images are really great. Same thing with the sound effects you're seeing here, and the visual styles that we're adding to balloons and everything like that. As for myself, I think one of the biggest things that I am proud of is contributing to this foreign language idea in comics. And when the book Hacktivist came along, we tried to figure out a way that we can bring readers in and out of different languages without having to use, you know, the carrots and say, oh, this is translated in such and such a language or whatever. So when the character is speaking Arabic, we just highlighted the balloon in red, and also had the characters in Arabic say that this is in Arabic, and you see the Francais and when they're speaking French. So these are immediately recognizable as the characters speaking different languages. And so these sort of things that I do are probably the things that stand out to me, where I'm hoping to innovate and bring new ideas to the lettering arena so that other letterers can use these ideas. And I've seen this used. I've seen other things used. For example, when I was doing the snow balloons in the Swamp Thing special, I have a video of that here on the YouTube channel if you guys want to check that out. It's a selfish plug, but just you know, it's just using these techniques that I hope can help other letterers use new tools and add to their repertoire, and that's one of the things that I'm proud of.
Awesome.
I totally used that Swamp Thing video on an issue of Rotobone, by the way. So,
Awesome.
All right, so we're about at the end of our time. So to wrap things up, we can go down the line, and I can call out each of you. If you want to give us just, you know, maybe one sentence, your final takeaway that you want the audience to take away about the importance of visibility for letterers. Darren, do you want to go first?
No. No, the importance, it's really a big deal for us as far as like we were talking about, being part of the team. Just knowing that, you know, we're not some offshoot that's not part of the major team when it comes to talking about comics, when it comes to being recognized as part of this bigger creation. We should be part of that. You know, it's really unfortunate that we're not always given the credit that we deserve. And so I'm hoping things like this, and, you know, things that we talked about, trying to help the letterer be seen, be visible, can help out, so that publishers and independent creators can know that, you know, our work is can be validated, and it can be pushed forward to the forefront, and it benefits us and benefits the comic itself.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Justin, what do you think?
The only thing that I'd like to add is that I think sometimes letterers are viewed as like the accounting department of comics. And I hope that this panel will at least show everybody who's watching that we have the potential to be a lot more fun than that.
Erica, what do you think?
I think one of the things that it can help as well is for people to understand that we we try to better ourselves. We try to learn off of other letterers, off of things that we've read. So when you have a project, if you are the creative team of a project, it's also easy to pick our brains because we read stuff, we look at stuff, and we might look at it in a different way than anybody else on the creative team is looking at it, because we're looking at the art, we're looking at the writing, and we're also looking at the lettering.
Morgan, what do you think?
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry. No, I was just thinking that like it can't be overstated that comics are a collaborative medium. And I think that, I guess maybe the best way to put it is that when you're buying a comic, you're really buying art from like 5 different artists. And that's not important just for the fact that those artists should be appreciated or that they could be seen, but to just really understand how much goes into comics, how many different levels there are to comics, and that there's room for you. There's room for you, there's room for everybody. There's always going to be something for someone to contribute. And yeah, so the more people understand that beyond just the word collaborative, like, you know, it would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. DC, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, echoing a lot of what everyone else said, I think my main takeaway is passion and enthusiasm is infectious, and that applies to me in so many areas of life. I'll listen to podcasts about stuff that I have no interest in. If the hosts are excited about it and passionate about it, they can get me excited about it. So even more so for a collaborative effort for a comic book creative team, bringing that passion, that recognition, that visibility for us as letterers, I think is beneficial for everyone, both for the quality of the work and then for more work and being able to continue to build those relationships to bigger and better comics down the line. So it helps all of us kind of do our best work.
And Tom.
I don't really have anything good to say.
This seems like a running gag for you.
You don't notice us because we don't draw the most sexy Nightwing ass. But if you think of each balloon as a cheek, we're giving you the most Nightwing butts. That's all I'm saying. We give you more Nightwing butts than the best Nightwing butt artist does. So
that's math. You can't argue with math. That's mathematically sound.
I can't think of a better way to end this panel than that note. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who contributed to this discussion. Thank you to everyone for watching. I hope you learned something today, and I hope you continue appreciating your letterers.
Thank you.